Hi there, it's been a long time since I made a video for this channel, and I really, basically if you see the older videos, I've said a lot of what needs to be said. Of course there are some changes in my perspective. I used to be somebody that believed that you really have to go to gold and silver and that's the end of it. That's basically the solution, but I no longer believe that. I think that you should have several different currencies in circulation to cover basically the power, the productive power of the different types of energy. And if you look at it in that perspective, then gold is an ideal currency for labor, because the amount of people that can do labor doesn't change that much, and the amount of gold also doesn't change that much, so that your money supply is simply fixed. Of course you have to make laws against saving gold and all that stuff. And then of course other means of productivity, which is the land, so basically agricultural, you could call that renewable as well, and fossil fuels, which is a well-known source of productivity, would have their separate currencies. So you have to split off a euro, for instance. I've made an article about it. Split off the euro for fossil fuels, the euro, which is for gold, is a gold-backed currency for labor, and the joule, which is for renewable energy. And then you can manage of course you can manage the amount of currency in circulation according to the supply of the different types of productive capacity. So if fossil fuels is reduced suddenly, then you have to have less euros in circulation. Of course you're trying to remove all the euros from circulation and replace them with joules by increasing the renewable power capacity, which can only be sold a little bit forward. So that means that the people that produce renewable energy can give out these joules as credit to people that want to buy their energy. I've read an article about it, I'll link to it below this video. I also got an email or a message by somebody that has a dual citizenship, American and Holland and Dutch. I think America is really screwed. It's going to be a bastion of, let's say, drone monitored activity, carbon oriented, nuclear oriented, simply because those two kind of sources of productivity are easily owned, and the renewable sources of productivity are not easily owned. And maybe it's true to say that the US is a country of owners, and if you don't have money, if you don't own money, you own nothing, and everything is traded. In Europe it's different, in other parts of the world it's much different. Of course there's parts of the world where there's basically no real money, still in Africa for instance, but in Europe you will have more equality in terms of money and less focus on money itself, but more focus on the value that you are creating. And that's something that you can increase if your ability to produce is easier, because then you can make decisions about quality. But if you have money traders like banks in charge, like in the US, that will keep the money supply scarce at all times, because otherwise they would not be necessary, then you will never achieve a situation in which you're going to focus on the quality of what you're doing and are going to basically create a situation that doesn't need much money. You're always going to be forced by tricks to make sure that you have to go back to the bank for money, which then buys you fossil fuels, which then produce something that is not high quality, which then breaks down, and then you have to renew it. There's another reason why to get out of the US, and that's because of fracking, because of shale gas. Of course it's not the same problem everywhere. There's probably areas that are completely clean, but if you read about the poisonous nature and the effects on human and animal health of fracking, then there's large areas of the US that are now rendered for a long time to be undesirable to live in. You're going to have low birth weights, animals that die, you see yourself that suffers all kinds of problems if you have methane in your drinking well water, or carbon dioxide seeping out of the ground, or you have some kind of carcinogen in your groundwater supply. You're screwed. In Europe we have banned fracking in some regions. There's a moratorium on, as we call it, which is a ban. Some are temporary, but that's good time to rally protest. On the other hand, you see a loss of democracy in Europe as well, but we are more capable of resisting it here, because we're separate countries and because we are different cultures. So France, for instance, is very capable of resisting whatever top-down trend is there to dispossess people, or let's say create kind of the Gulag state as the US has. So that's my idea. I would come to Holland. Not for the weather. It's a pity because the south of America, let's say towards the Mexican border, very sunny, should be enormously prosperous and becoming more prosperous. You know, I read an article that Saudi Arabia is going to produce 25% of their energy by 20 something with solar power. Well, they're stupid, because they could produce 100% of their energy with solar power. Even the methane, even the gasoline for the cars, everything that they need. They really basically don't need to use oil, because they are extremely sunny. And they can grow all their vegetables in the desert, so they don't have to import any. So they would be completely self-sufficient. They can desalinate with sunlight, they can desalinate with the wind. There's all kinds of technologies that they don't know about probably, or that they're simply not trying because they're being told that it's too expensive, or let's say the explanation that's given to them is inadequate, because otherwise wherever you are on Earth it's always better to go for renewables, because there are abundant, there are enough renewables, there's never a shortage of it. You are secured in your energy supply, in your food supply, in your heat, in your home and shelter. Why would you do that? That's just stupid to go for anything else. And maybe, I don't believe Obama will change anything. He's simply the same president as the last term, and he's a completely invested in carbon and invested in the financial dominance which is based on the carbon control of carbon resources. One only thing that I still believe could change in the US is that the Pentagon intervenes. So a war breaks out which let's say which affects Americans directly, not the types of wars we had until now, and in the reorganization for that war you'll find that people will grasp immediately to renewables in all kinds of ways in order to secure their survival. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Of course, it's kind of a doom scenario again. I'm completely against doom scenarios, because you have enough renewables to fix every problem. But you have to start doing it, and you have to find basically a reason for changing the behavior of everybody. I don't think it will come from Washington. I think it will come from the Pentagon, if it comes. And if it doesn't come, then you're just screwed, and then you're better off leaving the US altogether. Just go to a place where they don't frack and where there's some sunshine, and you'll be fine.